The breaking point. The observation deck of Unity's promise stretched before General Elena Vasquez like a window into eternity. Stars flickered against the black canvas of space, indifferent to the affairs of the countless beings who would gaze upon them. Elena stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her gray-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun, her posture reflecting for decades of military discipline. She was 58 years old, and she had never imagined her career would lead her here, to the heart of galactic civilization, negotiating humanity's expansion into the Sagittarius arm. Beside her stood General Kenji Nakamura, a name that confused many who expected a man, but found instead a sharp-eyed woman of Japanese-Hawaiian descent. Kenji was 43, the youngest of the three generals, and she commanded the Terran intelligence network with a precision that had prevented more conflicts than most generals would ever fight. Her mind was a steel trap, capable of processing information from 1,000 sources and finding the single thread that mattered. The third member of their delegation was General Adana Obi, a tall Nigerian woman whose commanding presence filled any room she entered. At 51, Adana controlled humanity's combined fleet operations, coordinating vessels across dozens of star systems. Her strategic mind had turned humanity's modest fleet into a force that earned grudging respect from older spacefaring civilizations. They had come to Unity's promise with hope. 60 years had passed since humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council. 60 years of careful diplomacy, of proving themselves worthy of standing among the stars. Earth had followed every rule, respected every custom, held back their natural expansionist tendencies because they wanted to be good neighbors in this vast cosmic community. The negotiation chamber awaited them beyond the observation deck. Elena checked her chrono. 5 minutes until the session began. She turned to her companions. "Something feels wrong," Kenji said quietly, her dark eyes scanning the corridors beyond the deck. "My analysts reported unusual communication patterns among Council security forces. Encrypted channels that weren't active during our previous visits." Adana nodded slowly. "My fleet captains have noticed Council warships repositioning near human trade routes. They claim it was routine patrol adjustments, but the timing is suspicious." Elena felt a wave of concern settle in her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. "We've come too far to turn back on suspicion alone. If the Council wanted to harm us, they've had 60 years to do it. Perhaps we're simply nervous about the stakes. These negotiations could open an entire spiral arm to human colonization." The three women exchanged glances. They had served together for 15 years, fought together during the Mars Rebellion, when separatist forces had nearly torn humanity apart. They had learned to trust each other's instincts, but they had also learned to face fear with courage. They entered the negotiation chamber together. The room was vast, a circular space with ascending tiers of seating that surrounded a central platform. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the chamber, their diverse forms creating a tapestry of galactic life. But Elena's attention fixed immediately on the 3 elevated thrones at the chamber's far end. The Zephyr ambassador floated above the left throne, a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering force field. Zephyr communicated through pulses of light and electromagnetic waves, their thoughts translated by sophisticated devices. They claimed to be evolved beyond physical form, though humanity's scientists suspected they were simply energy-based life that had always existed in that state. The Krell Queen occupied the center throne, her massive insectoid form covered in gleaming chitin plates. Behind her, a dozen smaller Krell drones stood in perfect stillness, their minds linked to hers through the hive connection. The Krell were the Council's military arm, providing enforcement when necessary. Their hive mind made them efficient, coordinated, and utterly loyal to their queens. The Madran Elder sat upon the right throne, though sat was perhaps the wrong word. The crystalline being existed as a complex geometric structure, facets reflecting light in patterns that seemed to shift between dimensions. The Madran were ancient, claiming civilizations that predated most current galactic species by millennia. They considered themselves the wisest of the Council races, the philosophical foundation upon which galactic law was built. Elena, Kenji, and Adana took their positions on the central platform. The chamber fell silent. The Zephyr ambassador's energy field pulsed with colors that translated to words. Generals of Earth, You stand before the Galactic Council to answer for crimes against civilized space. The words struck like physical blows. Elena felt her breath catch. Beside her, Kenji stiffened, and Adana's hand moved instinctively toward where her sidearm would normally rest, though all weapons had been surrendered at the station entrance. "This is a mistake," Elena said, her voice carrying across the chamber with military authority. "We came here to negotiate trade agreements. We have committed no crimes." The Krell Queen's mandibles clicked in a pattern that her translator rendered as harsh laughter. "Evidence has been presented to the Council. Your species has deployed biological weapons against Zephyr Colony Outpost Theta 9. 3,000 Zephyr citizens were exposed to a genetic modification virus designed to destabilize their energy matrices. 273 died. The rest suffered permanent damage." Kenji stepped forward. "That is absolutely false. Humanity has never developed biological weapons for use against Zephyr or any other species. We demand to see this evidence. We demand proper investigation procedures according to Galactic Charter Article 47, which guarantees accused parties the right to examine all evidence and mount a defense." The Madran Elder's crystalline structure resonated with a sound like distant chimes. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "The Council has reviewed all evidence. The Council has determined guilt. The Galactic Charter does not extend to species who wage biological warfare. Such beings forfeit their protections." Adana's voice was ice. "You cannot simply declare us guilty without trial. 60 years we have followed every Council regulation. 60 years we have proven ourselves peaceful. This accusation is manufactured, and we demand to know why." The chamber erupted in murmurs from the assembled species. The human generals were not behaving as the Council expected. They were not cowering or begging. They stood defiant, demanding justice according to the very laws that supposedly govern this gathering. The Zephyr ambassador's energy field turned a deep red. "Your defiance confirms your barbaric nature. The sentence has been determined. For crimes against the Zephyr people, for violation of the Biological Weapons Prohibition Act of the Council Charter, for threatening the peace of civilized space, you are sentenced to immediate execution." Time seemed to slow. Elena heard her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. She saw Kenji's face go pale, saw Dana's jaw clench with controlled fury. This was not a negotiation. This was not even a trial. This was an execution dressed up as justice, and the reasons behind it remained hidden. Armed guards emerged from concealed doors around the chamber. They were Krell warriors, their weapons trained on the three humans. Elena's mind raced through possibilities. They could fight, but they were unarmed and outnumbered. They could try to run, but where would they go on a station controlled by their executioners? They could plead, but she could see in the Council leaders' expressions that no plea would be heard. She thought of Earth, of the billions of humans who believed their representatives were negotiating humanity's bright future among the stars. She thought of the young soldiers who had served under her command, who trusted that following the rules and showing restraint would earn them respect. She thought of her daughter, who had just enrolled in the Terran Diplomatic Corps, eager to build bridges between species. And Elena Vasquez made a choice. "Record this," she said, her voice ringing across the chamber. She looked directly at the observation cameras that broadcast Council proceedings across the galaxy. "Record what happens here today. Let every species see what the Galactic Council calls justice. Let them see that we came in peace, that we followed your laws, that we trusted in your fairness." Kenji picked up the thread. "We are innocent of these charges. We have harmed no one. This execution is murder, and history will remember it as such." Adana stepped forward, facing the Council leaders directly. "You fear us. That is what this is really about. You fear that humanity is growing too strong, expanding too quickly, asking too many questions about how the Council maintains its power. So you invent crimes and execute the inconvenient. But you have made a mistake." The Madran Elder's crystalline facet shifted. "What mistake is that, human?" Adana smiled, though her eyes held no warmth. "You think killing us will frighten humanity into submission. You think our people will see this and learn to bow, to accept their place beneath you. But you do not understand us at all. Humanity does not break when we lose our leaders. We become more dangerous. You should have left us alone. The Zephyr ambassadors feel pulsed with irritation. Enough speeches. Execute the prisoners. Broadcast it across all channels. Let every species see what happens to those who threaten council authority. The Krell warriors advanced. Their weapons hummed with lethal energy. The three generals stood together, back straight, eyes forward, refusing to kneel. If they were to die, they would die as they had lived, with dignity, with courage, with defiance against injustice. Elena's last thought was of her daughter. She hoped the girl would understand. She hoped humanity would understand. They had not died for nothing. They had died proving that the Galactic Council's justice was a lie, and lies eventually crumbled beneath the weight of truth. The weapons fired. Energy tore through flesh. 3 women who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity fell to the cold floor of Unity's promise. The broadcast carried their deaths to every corner of known space, just as the Council intended. But the Council did not understand what they had truly broadcast. They had not shown the galaxy the consequences of defying their authority. They had shown the galaxy what happens when you murder innocents and call it justice. They had shown every human in existence that peace was an illusion, that restraint was rewarded with execution, that following the rules meant nothing when those in power wanted you gone. On Earth, Colonel Marcus Webb watched the broadcast from his office at Terran Defense Command headquarters. He was a weathered man of 55, career military, veteran of every human conflict for the past 3 decades. He had served under Elena Vasquez during the Mars Rebellion. She had saved his life twice, taught him strategy, believed in him when others saw only a reckless young officer. He watched her die on his screen. Marcus sat in absolute stillness for 17 minutes. His coffee grew cold. The sun moved across the sky outside his window. He did not move. His mind was processing, calculating, understanding what this moment meant for humanity's future. Then he stood and walked to his communication console. His hands were steady as he entered the emergency authorization codes. Within seconds, he was connected to the Terran Defense Command's highest authority channels. "This is Colonel Marcus Webb," he said, his voice calm and cold. "I am invoking emergency protocol Nightfall. Authorization code Victor 7 Omega Black. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Nightfall is active. Across Earth. Across every human colony and station and vessel in space, the message was received. Nightfall, the protocol that was supposed to never be used. The protocol that assumed the worst possible scenario, that humanity faced an existential threat requiring total mobilization. The Terran Assembly convened an emergency session 4 hours after the execution. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in the vast chamber in Geneva. The mood was beyond anger, beyond grief. It was something colder, something focused. President Sarah Martinez of the United Terran Government stood before the Assembly. She was 62 years old, a career diplomat who had spent her life building bridges between Earth's fractious nations. She had always believed in peace, in negotiation, in finding common ground. She looked at the Assembly with eyes that had changed in the past 4 hours. "Members of the Assembly, you have all seen what occurred at Unity's promise. 3 of our finest officers, 3 women who dedicated their lives to humanity's future, were murdered, not in battle, not defending our homes. They were murdered in cold blood by the very council we trusted to uphold galactic law." Her voice strengthened. "The council fabricated evidence. They denied our generals any opportunity to defend themselves. They executed them as propaganda, as a warning to keep us in our place. They broadcast across the galaxy because they wanted us to be afraid." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "I am not afraid. I am furious. I propose that the United Terran Government formally declares a state of total war against the Galactic Council. Not against every species in the galaxy, not against civilians, but against the leadership that ordered this atrocity. We will find everyone responsible and they will face justice. Real justice, not the mockery we witness today." The vote was called. Representatives from 217 nations responded. Not a single vote against war. The decision was unanimous. For the first time in human history, Every nation on Earth stood unified in purpose. The message went out that night to every human presence in alien space. Military vessels, trade ships, diplomatic outposts, scientific expeditions, civilian travelers, all received the same order. Come home. Immediately. No explanations, no farewells, no negotiations. Just pack everything and leave. Within 72 hours, human space fell completely silent. Every ship returned to Terran control systems. Every ambassador departed their posts. Every trade agreement was abandoned. Communication channels between human and alien space went dead. The galaxy expected panic, riots, angry protests. Instead, they got silence. The humans had simply vanished behind their borders, and nothing came out. No messages, no threats, no demands. Just empty space where humanity used to be on the Zephyrim homeworld. Ambassador Thel-9 tried repeatedly to contact human officials. He had worked with humanity for 20 years, had considered many humans to be friends. Now his calls went unanswered. The trade routes his people depended on stood empty. The technology-sharing programs that had benefited both species were terminated without explanation. He reported to the Council with growing concern. The humans are not behaving as predicted. They have not collapsed into chaos. They have not sent angry messages or threats. They have simply stopped talking to us entirely. This is troubling. The Krell Queen dismisses concerns. They are wounded and retreating to lick their wounds. Give them time. They will realize they need the Council, need galactic trade, need access to the resources we control. They will come back humbler, more willing to accept their place. The Madran Elder was less certain. The humans have shown remarkable unity in this response. We may have underestimated their capacity for coordinated action. Perhaps we should consider opening communication channels, offering some form of reconciliation. The Zephyrim ambassador's energy field flashed with irritation. Absolutely not. Showing weakness now would undo everything we accomplished. We executed their generals to demonstrate Council authority. If we back down now, every species in the galaxy will question our resolve. The humans will adjust. They always do. But the humans were not adjusting. Behind their closed borders, humanity was transforming. Project Nightfall had been designed 15 years earlier by a small group of military strategists and scientists who asked a simple question: what if we someday need to fight a war against the entire galaxy? It was considered paranoid at the time, a waste of resources on imaginary threats. Funding was minimal. Security was absolute, and only a handful of people knew it existed. That handful now directed humanity's largest mobilization in history. Secret shipyards scattered throughout the outer solar system activated. For years they had existed as asteroid mining operations or deep space research stations. Now they revealed their true purpose. Construction facilities capable of producing warships at a scale that would shock galactic intelligence services. Weapon systems that violated galactic treaties emerged from hidden research facilities. Humanity had agreed not to develop certain technologies: relativistic missiles, nano-warfare systems, quantum disruption weapons. They had signed those treaties in good faith, but they had kept the research data, just in case good faith was not enough. On Mars, the military academies expanded enrollment by 500%. Civilians volunteered faster than the military could process them. Factory workers retrained as weapons manufacturers. Scientists abandoned peaceful research to develop military applications. Artists created propaganda that reminded every human what had been done, what must be answered. Earth's moon became a fortress. Orbital platforms rose around every planet in the Sol system. Defense grids that could sterilize entire fleets stretched across space like invisible spiderwebs. And through it all, humanity maintained absolute silence toward the galaxy. No threats, no warnings, no negotiations. Just preparation. Colonel Marcus Webb stood in the command center of the newly revealed Prometheus Station, the largest military facility humanity had ever constructed. It floated in the Kuiper Belt, hidden among the ice and rock, invisible to casual scans. Now it hummed with activity, coordinating the greatest war machine humanity had ever assembled. His second-in-command, Commander Sarah Chun, approached with a data pad. She was 38, brilliant, and utterly focused. She had lost her brother in a border skirmish with Krell pirates 5 years earlier. The Council had ruled it an unfortunate incident and taken no action. Fleet status? Marcus asked. 1,700 warships operational and ready for deployment, Sarah reported. Another 2,300 will be ready within 6 weeks. The hidden yards are exceeding production estimates. Marcus nodded. The galaxy believed humanity had perhaps 300 military vessels. They were wrong by a factor 10, soon to be 20. What about intelligence? He asked. Captain James Okoye stepped forward. He was a psychological operations specialist from Nigeria, an expert in information warfare. We have complete surveillance on all Council communications. They believe we are hiding in fear. They think we will eventually come crawling back, desperate for trade and resources. They have no idea what is coming. Good, Marcus said. Let them think that. Let them believe they won. When we strike, it needs to be overwhelming. They need to understand in a single moment that they made a fatal mistake. He looked at the tactical displays showing the galaxy, showing all the Council-controlled space, all the systems where humans had once walked freely. We are going to teach the galaxy a lesson, not about human aggression, about human justice. We will show them that murdering innocents has consequences. We will show them that we held back our true strength because we chose to, not because we had to. He turned to his command staff. Prepare the fleet. Begin final training cycles. Make sure every captain understands the rules of engagement. We do not harm civilians. We do not destroy homes. We target only military installations and Council leadership. This is not revenge. This is justice. Commander Chin saluted. When do we strike, sir? Marcus thought of Elena Vasquez, of Kenji Nakamura, of Adana Obi. 3 women who had believed in peace, who had followed the rules, who had died for that belief. They deserved to be avenged, but more than that, they deserved to be remembered as the reason humanity finally stopped accepting injustice from those who claimed to be civilized. Soon, he said. Very soon. Let the Council enjoy their victory for a while longer. Let them think they have cowed humanity into submission. Then we will show them what happens when you murder our people and call it justice. Across human space, the war machine grew. Every day brought new ships, new weapons, new soldiers ready to fight. The silence continued, deep and profound, like the quiet before a storm that would reshape the galaxy. The Council had wanted to see human aggression. They had spent 60 years calling humanity dangerous, unpredictable, a threat to galactic peace. They had executed 3 generals to prove they were right. They were about to discover they had been absolutely correct. Humanity was dangerous. Humanity was a threat, but not to galactic peace. To galactic tyrants who dressed up murder as justice. The storm was coming, and when it broke, the galaxy would never be the same. The reckoning storm. The silence lasted 47 days. 47 days of humanity locked behind closed borders while the galaxy speculated, debated, and ultimately dismissed the threat. 47 days while shipyards worked around the clock, while soldiers trained in tactics designed specifically to counter each Council species, while scientists perfected weapons that existed only in theoretical papers. On the 48th day, the silence broke. Commander Sarachin stood on the bridge of the warship Relentless, watching the hyperspace countdown reach 0. Around her, 1,700 human vessels prepared to exit faster-than-light travel simultaneously. It was the largest coordinated military operation in human history, and she had been chosen to lead the first wave. Sarah was not a person who enjoyed war. She had joined the military to protect people, to ensure that conflicts could be resolved before they escalated to violence. But the Council had taken that choice away. They had shown that peace meant nothing to those in power, that following rules earned you nothing but contempt. Her tactical officer called out status reports. All ships reporting ready. Target coordinates confirmed. Exit in 30 seconds. Sarah took a deep breath. She thought about her brother, killed by Krell pirates while transporting medical supplies to a frontier colony. She thought about the 3 generals, executed for crimes they did not commit. She thought about every human who had suffered under Council arrogance and been told to accept it because they were the younger species, the newcomers, the ones who needed to prove themselves worthy. All ships, she said into the fleet-wide channel. This is Commander Chun. We are about to engage an enemy that believes we are weak, that thinks killing our leaders would break our spirit. They are about to learn how wrong they were. Remember the rules of engagement. Military targets only. No civilian casualties. We are not here for revenge. We are here for justice. Make our fallen proud. The ships dropped out of hyperspace. They emerged in the Zephyr border system of Luminera, a strategic junction that controlled access to 3 major trade routes. The Zephyr defense fleet waited in standard patrol formation. 12 vessels arranged to intercept any unauthorized traffic. They had detected the human fleet's approach, but had not considered it a serious threat. 12 ships against 1,700 seemed like overwhelming odds in their favor. They were catastrophically wrong. The human fleet did not slow, did not issue warnings, did not follow standard engagement protocols. They came in like a surgical strike, weapons already locked on targets, firing solutions calculated before they even exited hyperspace. The first volley destroyed 6 Zephyr ships before they could raise shields. The second volley crippled 3 more. By the time the Zephyr fleet managed to organize a counterattack, only 3 vessels remained operational, and those were already attempting to flee. Sarah watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Pursuit wings. Disable those fleeing vessels, but do not destroy them. I want prisoners. I want them to carry a message back to the Council. Human interceptors shot forward, faster and more maneuvering than anything the Zephyr had encountered. Within minutes, all 3 remaining enemy ships were dead in space, their engines disabled, their weapons offline, their crews unharmed but trapped. Begin Phase 2, Sarah ordered. Secure the orbital platforms. Broadcast our message. Landing craft launched from the larger human vessels, carrying Marines in advanced combat armor. They swept through the Zephyr orbital stations with practice efficiency, securing control centers, protecting civilians, taking military personnel into custody. Not a single civilian was harmed. Every action was recorded, every moment documented. Then the broadcast began. It transmitted on every frequency, in every language, to every receiver in the system. Captain James Okoye's face appeared on screens across Luminera, his expression serious but not cruel, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. People of Luminera, we are the Terran Defense Force. We have taken control of this system, but we are not your enemy. The Galactic Council is your enemy and ours. 48 days ago, the Council executed 3 human generals at Unity's promise. They claimed our people had committed biological warfare against Zephyr Colony Theta 9. This was a lie. The broadcast cut to data files, communications intercepts, evidence gathered by General Nakamura's intelligence network before death. It showed Council leaders planning the accusation, fabricating evidence, discussing how best to eliminate the human leadership while maintaining their image as just rulers. The Council murdered 3 innocent women to maintain their power. James continued. They broadcast the execution across the galaxy as a warning to anyone who might question their authority. They wanted you to fear them. They wanted humanity to submit. Instead, they taught us that justice must be taken, not requested. The broadcast shifted again, showing footage of the human fleet's arrival, the precise strikes that had disabled the Zephyr defense fleet without killing a single crew member. We could have destroyed every ship in the system. We could have bombarded your stations, killed your people, treated you the way the Council treated our generals. We did not, because we are not like them. We fight for justice, not for power. We harm only those who stand against us, and we harm them only as much as necessary. James leaned forward, his eyes seeming to look directly at every person watching. The war between humanity and the Council has begun. It will not end until everyone responsible for the murders at Unity's promise stands trial for their crimes. If you are military personnel, you can surrender and be treated with respect according to the rules of war. If you are civilians, you will not be harmed. We are not here to conquer you. We are here to free you from leaders who murder innocents and call it justice. The broadcast ended. Across Luminera, confusion reigned. The humans had attacked, but they had killed no one. They had taken control, But they were protecting civilians. They were providing evidence that the Council had lied, that the execution had been fabricated. Everything the Zephyr people had been taught about human aggression and barbarism was being challenged by the reality in front of them. On the Zephyr homeworld, Ambassador Thel-9 watched the broadcast 3 times. Then he contacted the Council with trembling energy patterns. The humans are not behaving as we predicted. They are not indiscriminate. They are not cruel. They are surgical, precise, and they are revealing our deception to the entire galaxy. This is a disaster. The Krell Queen dismissed the concerns with clicking mandibles. One system means nothing. The humans show mercy because they are weak. We will crush them with overwhelming force. Dispatch the Grand Hive Fleet to Luminara. I will personally lead the assault. The humans will learn what real military power looks like. The Grand Hive Fleet was the Krell's ultimate weapon. 75 massive warships, each one housing thousands of warrior drones linked to their queen's consciousness. They moved as a single organism, thought as a single mind, fought with perfect coordination. No enemy had ever withstood a Hive Fleet assault. The Krell Queen was certain the humans would not be the first. She was wrong. The Grand Hive Fleet arrived at Luminara 6 days after the human conquest. They emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, ready to overwhelm the human forces with sheer numbers and coordination. What they found was a trap. The human fleet had not remained at Luminara. They had seeded the system with thousands of autonomous weapons platforms, each one programmed with tactics developed specifically to counter hive mind coordination. The platforms did not attack the Krell ships directly. Instead, they broadcast electromagnetic pulses on frequencies that disrupted the neural links between the Queen and her drones. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Krell drones across the fleet suddenly found themselves thinking independently for the first time in their lives. The hive connection fractured, splintered, shattered. Ships drifted off course. Weapons fired randomly. Coordination collapsed into chaos. Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos watched from the bridge of the stealth ship Shadow, positioned at the system's edge where Krell's sensors could not detect her. She was a tactical innovation specialist, someone who thought about warfare in ways that made traditional military officers uncomfortable. She had designed the anti-hive weaponry, and now she watched it work exactly as predicted. The hive connection is fragmenting, her science officer reported. Individual Krell are experiencing cognitive shock. They are not attacking. They are trying to understand what happened to their shared consciousness. Maria nodded slowly. Begin Phase 2. Broadcast a message on Krell neural frequencies. The message was simple, delivered in patterns that individual Krell minds could understand. You are free. The hive connection was broken deliberately. You can think for yourselves now. You are individuals, not extensions of a queen's will. The Galactic Council uses your species as weapons, linking you to queens who serve council interests. They take your individuality and call it unity. We offer you a choice. Surrender and keep your independence, or restore the hive link and remain slaves to the council's will. Across the Grand Hive Fleet, Krell warriors experienced something they had never felt before. Choice, free will, the ability to decide their own actions. For some, it was terrifying. For others, it was liberation. The Krell Queen felt her control slipping away. She broadcast desperate commands, trying to reassert dominance, trying to force the drones back into unity. But the anti-hive weapons had done their work too well. The connection was broken beyond repair. One by one, Krell ships began powering down their weapons. One by one, captains who had never given orders before sent surrender signals. One by one, warriors who had lived their entire lives as parts of a greater whole decided they preferred to remain individuals. The Krell Queen's flagship, the Eternal Swarm, was one of the last ships to surrender. When human Marines boarded it, they found her alone in the command chamber, her connection to her fleet severed, her purpose gone. She looked at Maria Santos with compound eyes that reflected confusion and something that might have been relief. You have destroyed my fleet. No, Maria replied. We freed your people. Your fleet chose to surrender because they realized they could choose. The Council made you into weapons. We gave you back your minds. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she made a clicking sound that translators rendered as bitter laughter. The Madran will not be so easily defeated. They are ancient, powerful, and they understand the game of power better than any species. You may have outsmarted the Zephyr and freed the Krell, but the crystalline ones will not fall to clever tactics. We will see, Maria said. But first, you will stand trial for the role you played in the execution at Unity's Promise. The Queen did not resist as she was taken into custody. The Madran Elder received news of the Krell defeat with crystalline resonance patterns that indicated profound concern. The humans were not fighting conventional war. They were fighting an information war, a psychological war, a moral war. They were turning the galaxy's opinion against the Council, while simultaneously defeating Council forces. This required a different response. The Madran homeworld of Crystallis Prime was protected by the crystal fortresses, orbital stations grown from living crystal over thousands of years. They were considered invulnerable, their structures reinforced by quantum bonds that could not be broken by conventional weapons. The Madran believed they were untouchable. Dr. Yuki Tanaka proved them wrong. Yuki was not a soldier. She was a physicist specializing in harmonic resonance, someone who studied how vibrations and frequencies affected matter at quantum levels. When Colonel Marcus Webb asked her to examine the crystal fortresses and find weaknesses, she approached it as a scientific problem, not a military one. What she discovered changed everything. The crystal fortresses were indeed nearly invulnerable to physical attack, but they were also, by their very nature, resonant structures. They vibrated at specific quantum frequencies, and those frequencies could be mapped, analyzed, and exploited. Yuki designed weapons that did not attack the fortresses directly. Instead, they broadcast harmonic frequencies that matched the crystal's natural resonance, then gradually shifted those frequencies out of phase. It was like shattering a wine glass with a sustained note, but on a quantum scale. The human fleet arrived at Crystallis Prime 3 weeks after the Krell surrender. They did not attack immediately. Instead, they positioned their ships in a sphere around the planet and activated Yuki's harmonic weapons. The effect was gradual but inexorable. The crystal fortresses began to vibrate, gently at first, then with increasing intensity. Cracks appeared in their structures. Quantum bonds that had held for millennia began to fail. Within 6 hours, the fortresses were no longer stations but debris fields, their crystalline fragments glittering like snow in the void. The Madran people watched in shock as their ultimate defenses crumbled without a shot being fired. Their ancient, invulnerable protections had been defeated by simple physics. Colonel Marcus Webb broadcast directly to the Madran Elder. Your fortresses are gone. Your allies have surrendered. You are alone. I offer you the same choice I offered them. Surrender everyone responsible for the execution at Unity's Promise. Submit to proper trials with real evidence and real justice, or watch your civilization fall the way your fortresses did. The Madran Elder's crystalline structure dimmed. You would destroy an entire species for 3 deaths. No, Marcus replied. I would destroy a corrupt government to prevent future deaths. Your species is not our enemy. Your leadership is. The Madran people deserve better rulers than those who murder innocents to maintain power. Surrender the guilty, or I will come and take them. The elder was silent for a long time. Then his structure began to resonate in patterns that indicated resignation. You have won, Colonel Webb, not through greater strength, but through greater wisdom. We believed our technology, our age, our experience would protect us. We were wrong. The guilty will be surrendered. The trials will proceed. But I ask one thing in return. What is that? Remember that not all Madran supported the execution. Many of us argued against it. We were overruled by those who feared your species' potential. Do not judge our entire civilization by the actions of a fearful few. Marcus nodded slowly. That is exactly what we are trying to teach the galaxy. Judge individuals by their actions, not entire species by the crimes of their leaders. Send us the guilty, and the rest of your people will be left in peace. The surrender of the Madran leadership took 2 days. Council officials who had planned the execution, who had fabricated evidence, who had ordered the deaths of 3 innocent women, were gathered and transported to human custody. They came not as prisoners of war, but as criminals awaiting trial. The final confrontation took place where it had begun, Unity's promise. The station still floated in neutral space, still served as the heart of galactic governance. But now it was surrounded by a human fleet, and the chambers where council leaders had once ruled supreme were empty except for prisoners and their judges. Colonel Marcus Webb oversaw the arrangements personally. The negotiation chamber where the generals had died was transformed into a proper courtroom. Judges from neutral species were brought in to ensure fairness. Evidence was presented. Witnesses testified. And for the first time in galactic history, council leaders faced real justice. The trials were broadcast across every system, to every species, so that all could see what justice actually looked like. The accused were given lawyers, given opportunities to present evidence, given every right that had been denied to the 3 human generals. The proceedings took weeks, but they were thorough and fair. In the end, 17 individuals were found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, fabrication of evidence, and abuse of power. They were sentenced according to galactic law, the same law they had claimed to uphold. Their sentences were imprisonment, not execution. Humanity would not become what it fought against. The Zephyr ambassador, Thel 9, was among those acquitted. Evidence showed he had argued against the execution, had tried to stop it, had been overruled by more powerful voices. He approached Marcus after the trials concluded. "I underestimated your species," Thel 9 said, his energy field pulsing with shame. "I believed the Council's propaganda about human aggression and barbarism. I believed you would respond to the execution with mindless violence. Instead, you responded with precision, discipline, and justice. You have taught the galaxy a lesson we desperately needed." Marcus looked at the alien who had once been part of the system that killed his friends. "The lesson is simple. Power without justice is tyranny, no matter how ancient or advanced the civilization. The Council ruled for 10,000 years, but they forgot why they were given power in the first place. To protect people, not to protect themselves. What happens now?" Thel 9 asked. "The Council is broken. The triumvirate species have lost faith in their leaders. The old order is collapsing. What will replace it?" Marcus gestured to the courtroom where representatives from dozens of species had gathered to witness the trials. "Something better. A new galactic charter that applies equally to all species, where justice is real and accountability exists even for the powerful. Humanity did not fight this war to rule the galaxy. We fought to prove that innocents should not be murdered for political convenience." He paused, thinking of Elena Vasquez, of Kenji Nakamura, of Adana Obi. "We fought so that what happened to our generals never happens to anyone else." The new galactic charter was drafted over following months. It contained provisions that ensured fair trials, protected whistleblowers who exposed corruption, limited the power of ruling species, and gave every civilization a voice in galactic governance. It was not perfect, but it was better than what had existed before. 3 memorial stations were built in neutral space, each one named after a fallen general. They served as reminders of the cost of injustice and the price of freedom. Ships from every species passed them, and many stopped to pay respect to humans who had died, so that the galaxy could change. On Earth, in the military cemetery at Arlington, 3 more monuments were erected. They bore the names of the generals and a simple inscription: "They came in peace. They died for justice. They changed the galaxy." Colonel Marcus Webb stood before those monuments on the first anniversary of the execution. Around him, representatives from dozens of species had gathered. Former enemies, new allies, beings who had learned that humanity's strength came not from aggression, but from principle. Captain James Okoye stood beside him. "Do you think they will be proud, sir, of what we did, how we fought?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, remembering 3 women who believed in peace, who had tried to do things the right way, who had died because they trusted in justice. "I think they will be proud that we did not become monsters to fight monsters," he said finally, "that we held ourselves to a higher standard even in war, that we proved humanity could be strong and just at the same time." Commander Sarah Chin joined them, along with Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos and Dr. Yuki Tanaka. The 5 humans who had led the war stood together, looking at the monuments to those who had died. "The galaxy has changed," Sarah said. Species that were enemies are now working together. The Council's grip on power is broken. Smaller civilizations have voices they never had before, all because 3 women were murdered, and humanity refused to accept it. Justice, Marcus said quietly. That is what they died for. That is what we fought for. Not revenge, not conquest, not power. Just justice. And in the end, that was enough. They stood in silence as the sun set over Earth, casting long shadows across the monuments. The war was over. The galaxy was changed. 3 women had died, but their deaths had not been meaningless. They had sparked a fire that burned away corruption and lit the way to something better. In the darkness of space, ships from 100 species travel routes that were safer now, fairer now, more just now because humanity had refused to accept that might made right. The lesson had been taught. The galaxy had learned. And 3 generals who had come in peace and died for justice were remembered not as victims, but as a catalyst for the greatest positive change the galaxy had seen in 10,000 years. The stars shone on, indifferent as always, but the beings who gazed upon them were different now. They had seen what happened when power was challenged, when injustice was punished, when a young species refused to bow to ancient tyranny. They had seen humanity fight not with rage, but with righteousness. And the galaxy would never be the same.